Hey, welcome to Talk Huntington, and we're getting to that time of the year we got to do something a little spooky. And I'm Alligator Jackson, and I'm with Dylan Smith, a Huntington filmmaker. What up, Dylan?
What's up, Gator? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to be scared out of my mind.
Oh, man, you ready to get strangled?
Well, it won't be the first time,
Right,
probably, but
right.
you know what? There's a lot of people out there that probably take you up on that offer. But hey, man, so what's going on?
Well, in 1964, there was a horror film shot here all around Huntington at the old Huntington High School, at the old Martin's Restaurant, and in Ritter Park. And this movie is sort of a cult classic. It's kind of gained a huge following over the last 60 years. And we're doing a 60th anniversary screening at the Foundry Theater this October 25th.
Wow, man, I was 1 year old when that was made.
Wow, that's awesome. You could have been the killer.
There's not too many... Not too many things that are as old as me still around here.
Right.
But that's great, because that was a great time period. Right?
Yep.
That was just really, really fun. We had all that campy stuff that we looked back then. It was like real serious, probably straight, and then now we look at it.
It's kind of silly, right?
Well, probably. I mean, how did this all come to be?
Sure. Well, so you know, in 1964, this was a very serious studio film that came down from New York to shoot in Huntington, all with local Huntington actors and Huntington crew. And it's kind of a combination between Rebel Without a Cause, Psycho, and American Graffiti. So it has kind of a combination of those teeny boppers, but also a whodunit slasher story. And it's kind of ahead of its time because it's almost made 15 years before, you know, Halloween, Michael Myers. So it feels almost very like a proto-Scream or like a proto-slasher.
Well, I understand there's like kind of a ode to Psycho in there.
Yeah. There's a scene that's really ahead of its time, which for 1960 was considered pretty risque, where this girl is kind of, you know, in her home alone, and she has a full-length slip on, and she goes to take off her slip and lifts her leg up and takes her hose off in front of the camera. And while she's doing this, the Strangler is kind of peeking in, watching her through the windows. And as she goes to get in the shower, he goes in and strangles her. So it's kind of an ode to Psycho, but it really updates it and makes it its own thing. It's really ahead of its time.
Well, I'm sure probably the really, really interesting thing is going to be seeing all these Huntington landmarks and everything where this was filmed at back, you know, going back to 1960. What all local Huntington places are featured in this?
Yeah, so there's an awesome opening scene where a kill scene in Ritter Park where a girl gets strangled after she runs through the Rose Garden. It's really, really neat. But a lot of the film takes place around Huntington High School, so there's a lot of shots of tons of teenagers on the front steps, you know, inside the school. But something that's kind of interesting is there were 5 reels shot for the film, and when the reels were being shipped off on an airplane to New York to be edited, one of the reels got lost in the mail. So there is actually a missing reel in this film somewhere, and we don't really know where it is. So
kind of a mystery.
Yeah, it really takes you there, huh?
Oh, wow. Man, that's going to be... Didn't say there was a grocery store in there, too?
There's no grocery store. Let me think.
Didn't you say it was Martin's? Or
Martin's Restaurant. Martin's Restaurant. There's also the old
drag
drag strip down from Guyandotte that has a really great featurette in the film.
Martin's Restaurant. That was like a Jim's back in the day.
Kind of like a Jim's. It's down where the Harmony House is now. Yes, sir.
All right, man. So we're looking for... there's just a lot of like pop culture references to this out there, isn't there?
Yeah, so this movie kind of became a cult phenomenon, not just in Huntington, West Virginia, but globally. So there is a band from the UK that I have been in contact with that they made 2 studio albums completely based on the film, and it's kind of like punk rock music, so they have a song where they say, "Take her body down to the creek, 'cause I'm a teenage strangler," you know?
So what's the name of this band?
So the band is actually called the Teenage Stranglers. Yep.
You know, I'm going to be looking up on Spotify, YouTube, wherever I can find that when I get out of here.
I think you're going to like them.
Oh, wow.
The film's also been shown for decades at an Italian film festival where apparently people just love the movie. It was shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000 in the 90s.
I love that show.
Oh, it's awesome. And recently I found a hand-painted poster from Africa.
It's crazy.
Yeah, all the paint is mixed, you know, hand-mixed, hand-painted on a flour sack. And so they shipped this to me from East Africa. And so it's just got tons of little scenes from the film.
I like the bulldog.
Yeah, that plays such a huge part in the film, the bulldog leather jackets. So I just love the detail there.
It was a kind of pre-Pitbull, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, I like that right over there.
Yep, so this was the 1994. They did a re-premiere at the Keith Albee after it aired on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and this was the poster for that Huntington Quarterly did.
Okay, what about this big event we're going to have?
Of course. Well, so it's the 60th anniversary this November. We're coming up on it, and so we're going to do a screening in October, a little more Halloween themed, at the Foundry Theater. But there is one last living cast member from the film, Ted Klemper, a local Huntingtonian. Cool. And we did an interview with him that's about 15 minutes long. It's very insightful and tells so many things about the film that needed to be known, like the missing reels, and kind of fills in the gaps a little bit. Yeah. So we're going to show that interview beforehand of Ted, and then we're going to show the film, and then we're actually going to bring Ted on stage to say some of his famous lines from the film, sort of a special guest. But we're also going to be selling prints of the Ghanaian poster here. We're going to have the Ghanaian poster.
I'll definitely get one of those.
Yeah, we're going to have that on display. The paint just pops when you see it in person, so I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun. And we're going to have music being played by the Teenage Stranglers. So
I'm definitely checking them out, man. It just blows my mind because I've never heard of. I mean, I've lived here since 1976, and I've never heard of the Teenage Strangler.
Right. It's one of the only 4 films that premiered at the Keith Albee, including Rain Man and We Are Marshall. So, it's kind of got a prestigious place on that list.
So this is before the Boston Strangler and the Cincinnati. I know growing up in Cincinnati, there was a Cincinnati Strangler.
Absolutely.
So maybe he watched the Teenage Strangler. And
got a little inspired, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This blows my mind, all of this, pop culture all of a sudden centered around this. And
right.
That's just great, man.
Yeah. And it's a whodunit, so when you watch it, right from the start, really try to figure out who the killer is. It's a lot of fun to, right near the end of the film, lean to whoever you're watching it with and say, all right, who you think did it? Because somebody always has a different answer. So
it's kind of like Clue. I think Colonel Plum did it in the dining room.
Exactly.
With the, rope, because it's Strangler. So what, the candlestick.
There it is.
The rope.
Oh, he uses pantyhose in this movie.
Pantyhose.
Yeah, real crazy, real risque.
Hey, that's 19. Yeah, who wears pantyhose? I don't. I mean, it's 19.
Right.
It was 1964.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow, man. So how did this all come to be?
Well, I sort of fell in love with the Teenage Strangler after seeing it a few years ago, and I began sort of collecting memorabilia of it. I've got a VHS tape of it. I've got multiple DVD copies of it, and I ended up wanting to find out if there was anybody still living from the film. So I kind of found Ted Klemper and went up and met him, and he was just such a blast and so ecstatic about it that it just kind of led me down a wild goose chase. I actually found out that the film, since it had missing reels, couldn't premiere in a 90-minute slot at the Keith Albee in the 60s. So it got moved to a drive-in in Atlanta. So I went down to the drive-in in Atlanta. I actually met a guy who owns a business called Deadly Prey Gallery, where he buys and trades rare movie posters. He was in contact with the Ghanaian artist named Nibi Ashiti, who hooked me up with this poster. He had painted it on a flour sack. And then I ended up calling a company called Something Weird. Something Weird had done a 45 vinyl record pressing of the 2 original songs from the film. One is called Yipe Stripes and has a real cultural fame. So they had the rights to the DVD and the 45. And so to have the re-premiere and to get the rights for everything, I called them, and they told me that a guy in New York named Phil Hopkins owned the rights and the original reel to the film. So I called up Phil Hopkins. He runs a company called Film Detective, and Film Detective is currently taking the reel to do a Blu-ray restoration, have it in full HD, and so we kind of collaborated with him to do the interview of Ted Klemper to get it on that Blu-ray. So that's how this all came together, and that's where we are now.
Man, I like that guy's name. I tell you, if you're the Teenage Stranglers watching this, I'll tell you what, the song would be "Need Be Recipe, Need Be Recipe." I mean, that'd go right along with it. Get that good punk groove.
The perfect chorus.
Ooh. Oh yeah, man! Wow, this is just blowing my mind. And you're a big fan of the genre, aren't you?
I'm a very big fan, and I'll be hosting the event. I'll be telling a lot of cool facts about it, and I think everybody that's a genre fan that likes horror, this movie is so ahead of its time, and it actually influenced a lot of the things that you see in modern horror today. So it's all in Huntington. Come out, come see it, be a part of a Huntington legend.
So do you want to talk about your project that you got going on too that involves Huntington?
I won't say too much about it, but I'll say a little bit about it. We also have a surprise short film that's going to be premiering before the Teenage Strangler. It's a small short film called The Ghost of Fifth Street Hill. It's based on a folk tale. about Fifth Street Hill and about a ghost that haunts taxi drivers on that road. And it's actually based on Herald Dispatch articles, 3 different ones spanning from the 40s to now. So it's a lot of fun.
Tell you, that's worth it. Me right there.
Yeah.
That's will put me in the seat right there just to come and watch that, because I've heard about that legend for a long time, and to see it right there unfold in front of you, and I'm sure you're going to have a very good interpretation of it. So, wow. Well, I'll tell you what, man, sounds like a good time. We're
it's going to be
that time of the year.
Yes,
so
sir.
Get a little spook action.
Ooh, a little strangled.
Ooh, little strangle action going on. Hey, this is Alligator Jackson. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, Gator. Thanks for having me.
You got to be there. Chomp on.
October 25th at 6 p.m.